Friday, the South African Democratic Teachers Union marched to Durban City Hall. The high cost of living and unsafe schools, the environment there, were among the issues raised by educators. They handed over a memorandum of demands to the Education Department. For more on that march, let's bring in Mugwena Maluleke, who is Sadtu's General Secretary, joining us via our video link this afternoon. And as you and I speak, sir, have you had any response from the provincial government?
Good afternoon, Ayanda, and to your viewers at home. Not yet, because we have given them 7 days to respond to the issues that have been contained in the memorandum that was delivered to the government of KwaZulu-Natal.
What's the call exactly from teachers there? We do know that the provincial education department has been plagued by these challenges for years now, but in some ways, of course, it's not unique to KZN, is it?
It is not unique to KZN, indeed. It is austerity measures that have been implemented over years by the Treasury in our country. Basically, over years, having to reduce the budget of education to the extent that the Department of Education in different provinces had to embark on utilizing money that was meant for capital expenditure for other important resources that are needed in our schools. So in KZN, one of the burning issues basically is, when you undermine signed collective agreement that basically ensured that teachers have to receive the 1.5% of pay progression. You would remember that this has been a sore point for many, many years. When other public servants were receiving 1.5% of the pay progression, teachers were only receiving 1%. In 2017, we had to have a very big, huge march in Tshwane to demand that teachers must also be treated just like any other public servant. But basically, as part of retention strategy for the government, it is important not to undermine collective bargaining. It is unforgivable for any government not to have teachers in front of the children, because Section 29(1)(a) basically of our Constitution obliged the government to ensure that basic education is not about we will reach this by when. It is now. You have to have a teacher in the classroom. So if teachers are delayed because Treasury is not understanding the uniqueness of education, this indeed demands that we stand up in the protection of the future of our children, in the protection of our education against the austerity measures.
Part of what was also raised is there's been a very slow rate in which office-based posts have been filled. Help us understand how this affects the work done by teachers in the classroom.
What it has done basically is that it has increased the workload of our teachers. Now, teachers' as work is to teach in the classroom and making sure that schedules and marking is done on time, and so that students can get feedback. What it has done, it has then undermined the teaching time, because the teachers spend a lot of time on administrative work. Secondly, it is that the teachers and the children now begin to be now focusing on 1 hour to 2 hours of cleaning of the classroom instead of having those who are responsible for cleaning being appointed. So the delay of appointment of any support staff in education impacts on the quality of learning. It impacts on the quality of education, but also has impact on the lives and the health of our children and the teachers, because now we see a high level of mental health that is suffered by our children and by our teachers, precisely because they don't have the support that they deserve in terms of education support personnel. It's very critical that education support personnel must be provided for the schools, because they play a very, very important role in ensuring that there is what we call quality learning and teaching.
Yeah, there are people sharing sentiments along the lines of KZN education being on the precipice of a disaster. Is that a sentiment you also share?
That's what we are sharing, that we are just at the precipice of disaster and catastrophe, because when education is impacted upon, we are going to have a delay in providing the skills that we need for our country. We are going to have to delay in providing the stability in terms of social cohesion in our country, because education plays that particular catalytic role as well as an enabler role for these particular social structures and social fiber in our society. So education is everything to us, and therefore any of these particular catastrophic austerity measures that are being implemented are going to impact on the lives of our people, and therefore we need to stand together as a society to protect education against austerity measures.
Yeah, is not the first time that teachers, and I suppose under the banner of Sadtu, have raised these concerns with government. Even under the tenure of the previous MEC, KwaZulu-Natal, in the education department there had been engagements with officials from government. It seems, at least from my vantage point, that nothing has changed since those kind of talks. And so I wonder on what basis you're hoping that things will be different this time around.
Well, there were things that changed under Mshengu after we have delivered the memorandum to the then Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Sihle, and obviously having approached the National Treasury to ensure that there's money that was provided for them to be, one, to pay the pay progression, secondly, to making sure that there are substitute teachers in the classroom when the teachers are not well, because that is the uniqueness of education. You cannot have a classroom without a teacher, and so forth. So what is going to have to take now is to ensure that at the national level, we take up these particular fights together with everyone in the community, in the society, to ensure that we say no austerity measures in education, because it's going to impact on our health, it's going to impact on our economy, and it's going to impact on our social cohesion project of bringing together the people of South Africa in an integrated way, so that we are then able to work as a unified nation to fight against drug abuse, to fight against substance abuse that is affecting our children. So it is going to take not only Sadtu, but it's going to take everyone else making sure that we send a very strong message to the Treasury to ensure that austerity measures do not apply in education. We know that it is not only our government that is under pressure, but it is because of the IMF and the World Bank imposing in these particular austerity measures. And clearly is that we must reject those particular policies of the IMF and the World Bank, and ensure that our government protects its sovereignty through the efforts and the mass mobilization of our people.
Yeah, I mean, those multinationals, I suppose, have a hand in this. But to be fair, I suppose we could also use the money we do have much better than we have already. I wonder what the next step looks like for Sadtu if you don't get a favorable response from government in this time that you've stipulated, especially because there are already concerns that many people who raise issues with government and don't get a favorable response typically run to the courts, and that in some ways leaves South Africa in a context where it seems that governance is taking place via the judiciary.
Yeah, well, some of the actions that we have planned to as the National Executive Committee is that we are convening an economic indaba, where we are bringing in all the stakeholders so that we are then able to send a very strong message to those who are responsible for our economy and for our governance, to deal with corruption, to deal with wastage in our government, but obviously to deal with inefficiencies that are there. That basically, these are some of the areas where we see a lot of money in terms of the reports of the Auditor General of South Africa, that we can be able to save this particular country. Despite the fact that, yes, we need new money, we need to generate revenue in our country, but yes, corruption is one of those particular cancers that is really destroying our social fabric in South Africa, and therefore we then build it. So in that particular endeavor, we will bring all the stakeholders so that we are then able to come out with a particular program of action that will see to it that austerity measures in education do not apply.
Mugwena Maluleke is the General Secretary of Sadtu. Thanks very much indeed for your time. It's certainly a developing story that we'll keep watching as it continues to unfold.